banks breathing down your neck. They want their money. And, you know, the bank kept calling me every single day, hounding me. I was just at a breaking point because I was just so upside down and I didn't see any other way out. And, you know, I was going to take my life. And my wife forgot something that day and came home. So I hurried around and put the gun away. And she walked in and she said, "What's wrong? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing." And I changed my mind. You know, she saved my life.
Coy Young was on the brink in 2020. He's a fourth-generation cattle rancher, and because of corruption and consolidation in the beef industry, he's about to be the last. He's selling off his entire herd and getting out of the business. And he's not the only one being affected. You, sitting at home, watching this video, are getting ripped off by the same people that are forcing Coy to shutter his farm.
The price of beef is up 20% from this time last year.
While beef prices in your local supermarket continue to skyrocket, and America's farmers suffer under increased costs, decreased sales, and rising suicide rates, well, the big four beef monopolies are raking in record profits. The CEO of National Beef, Tim Klein, claimed that high prices on the shelves, well, that's simply the result of supply and demand.
The beef industry is the most purest form of capitalism in this country, I believe. As demand goes up, price goes up. If demand goes down, price goes down.
But those profits aren't going to the farmers.
We're at a breaking point. Either something has to change or there isn't going to be any American ranchers left.
It's both. And this is the classroom for a more perfect union. And today, we're going to talk about how the beef industry got rigged. Coy is one of 14,700 cattle farmers who will have to sell their farms or go bankrupt this year. Since the 1980s, the United States has lost more than 44% of family farms. And with them, the main streets and rural communities that they held together. Coy's story is like a lot of other ranchers, and he's leaving his business in debt. 100% of his check today, well, it's going to the bank.
The bank must have called and said they needed the check because their name's on it too. Which basically they own you until you pay your debt.
Coy sold the last of his herd right after the new year. We talked to him at Christmas time about how his family was getting by.
When you're part of this life and you do it, you know, the animals, you love them. I've been hanging on to these guys for my cows for the past 3 years thinking it'd get better. It hasn't. You know, you're losing your self-image. As a man, I'm trying to get over it, but it's like, you know, the world doesn't have a use for you anymore. You need to do something else, is basically what I'm being told. You know, the small guys don't have a chance.
You might not know how cattle ranching works, so let's break down the whole process for you, from the farm to your local supermarket. First, there are the ranchers. Coy is a calf cow producer. He raises cattle until they reach a certain weight.
You basically raise the animals from birth until they're an average of 7, 10 months, 12 months of age roughly. It's more by weight, so once they get up to 500, 600 pounds, we sell them at the local livestock market.
Ranchers like Coy sell at auction, which is supposed to be an open market with price discovery, meaning ranchers bid based on what they expect the market to look like at any given time. They look at things like the weather, the price of grain, and international sales. The cattle go on to a second rancher, known as a background, then on to the feedlot, where they are fattened until they're slaughtered. The slaughterhouses buy from the feedlots and package the meat, where it goes to you, the consumer.
You know, your primal ribs, your strip loins, your sirloin roast, hamburger.
But in the last few decades, the number of feedlots has decreased, and the packers, the ones who slaughter the cattle, have consolidated. This has had all kinds of consequences for consumers and farmers. For one, as consolidation increased, competitors dropped out, and ranchers had fewer buyers to sell to. What they were able to take home went down. Way down.
My dad always used to say you could sell your calves in 1975 and buy a new Chevy pickup. Well, that still holds true today. You can sell your calves and buy a 1975 Chevy pickup.
Just look at this chart. The consumer has steadily been paying more for beef, while the farmer is earning less. Ranchers only get 39 cents of every dollar spent on burgers and steaks, whereas in 1970, they were getting 60 cents of every dollar.
What we've got is extreme monopoly power.
Peter is an economics reporter at the New York Times. He met Coy when he was working on a story not about American cattle ranchers, but about supply chain breakdowns in general.
He came up here and he was like, why are beef prices so high in the store and you guys are going broke? And I told him, well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Cargill, Tyson, JBS, and National Beef. Those are your 4 reasons why American farmers are going broke.
They're known as the Big Four. You might not have ever heard of these companies, but if you've ever bought or eaten beef, you've gotten it from them. The Big Four own 85% of the beef market. One way packers stifle competition is by making contracts with feedlots behind closed doors. Rather than going to auction like Coy does, packers sign alternative marketing agreements, or AMAs, with the feedlots, circumventing the open market that ranchers rely on and depressing that market. 73% of sales now happen through AMAs. And the pressure on feedlots to meet demand means they've consolidated as well. The bigger the feedlots become, the more tightly packed the animals are, which causes pollution in the land and the water. High-density feedlots also account for 7% of emissions that cause global warming in the United States. There really isn't one part of the chain that isn't feeling the squeeze. The consumer, the farmer, the animals, even the planet, except, of course, for the packers.
The person sitting at home is paying more, not because the ranchers, the workers are getting fairly compensated for their labor. The person sitting at home is paying more so that we can give more money to the shareholders of those 4 giant companies.
To understand how this happened, Peter says we need to go back to the turn of the 20th century.
So if we just back up for a second, going back to 1906, Upton Sinclair writes his famous novel, The Jungle reveals that these stockyards in Chicago, where there's tens of thousands of cattle penned up and tens of thousands of workers laboring in just horrific conditions. And so there was this consumer outrage.
It's an outrage.
And that isn't safe even at his own dinner table.
Why doesn't the government step in?
And they did step in. At that point, there was a high level of concentration in the beef industry. 5 companies controlled 55% of the share of beef in the United States. And it wasn't just the beef industry that was monopolistic. That was true of the railroads, the steel yards, the coal fields, and the banks.
So President Woodrow Wilson unleashes this probe by the Federal Trade Commission, and 2 years later, Congress passes the Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921.
The Packers and Stockyards Act banned meatpacking corporations from manipulating and controlling prices, creating monopolies, or restraining fair competition, which, by the way, would probably include creating captive markets like the Packers do today with AMAs. For decades, there was bipartisan support for the idea that monopolies were bad. They were bad for the consumer, and they were bad for the worker. That all changed when a new philosophy on the regulation of corporations took hold, driven by economists at the University of Chicago School of Economics like Milton Friedman or Robert Bork, who you might remember from our explainer on Ticketmaster a few months ago. Robert Bork believes consumers benefited from larger conglomerates because their supposed increased productivity would make prices go down. Mergers and price discrimination, Bork argued, shouldn't be as important to the government as consumer welfare, allowing companies to get cheap products to the consumer. His work had a profound impact on President Ronald Reagan, who reshaped our antitrust laws, undoing decades of worker and consumer protection.
We've essentially been marinated in this idea that scale is the way to produce stuff that people can afford, quality products, that's how we get innovation. History tells us otherwise.
The largest packers went from owning just 25% of the market in the 1970s to now owning 85%.
It's a huge bottleneck system. They control all the slaughter and they control all the prices. And you're at their mercy.
Consolidation at this scale means that the market is fragile, and minor upsets can wreck the whole system. Think of early in the pandemic, when there was a beef shortage. Slaughterhouses were shutting down because of COVID-19 outbreaks, and ranchers had no one to sell their beef to. Prices were skyrocketing in the supermarket, but ranchers weren't seeing the profits.
The pandemic didn't create this situation, it had revealed this situation.
That year, Coy had financed a herd of Angus beef that he was hoping to make a profit from. His sale was set for March 15th, 2020.
Our supply chains in America are the most powerful in the world, and they're all working very hard. They're working round the clock.
And that Friday, the Chicago Board of Trade feeder cattle price tanked to 108, and it hadn't been that low since November of 2010 or 11. I'm still recovering from it.
That was when Coy almost decided to take his life.
When you subject people who are accustomed to being able to support themselves to circumstances in which it's basically impossible to support themselves, there's real trauma associated with that.
Coy runs a weekly group for other ranchers struggling in their business or with their mental health.
There's nothing more that I'd rather do than to take care of cattle. And it's also building a legacy, something that my kids can have in the future and maybe even their kids.
We're ranchers talking about what we're doing, but we're just an analogy to the larger picture of America. It's corporate power dictating what's going on in the halls of Congress, and it is small business in general, not just ranchers. Small business is under attack.
Coy has a side business running a barbecue catering company, and he's transitioning to that full time. He's also devoting time to helping other farmers. He testified before Congress in 2022 of price fixing in the industry.
I come here before you today and try to save what is left of rural America. You know, I do feel very, passionate about this, to be an advocate for the American cattle farmers, because a lot of them are too scared to say anything. I don't have any cattle anymore. I mean, I have nothing left to lose.
We don't have to lose farmers like Coy, and we shouldn't. The Biden administration can enforce the Stockyards and Packers Act of 1921, which Coy likes to say the USDA is using as a doorstop now. It would mean ranchers like Coy wouldn't have to give up the work that they love, and the consumer wouldn't be buying hamburgers that only profit shareholders of big conglomerates.
We need to push back on this idea that deregulation and just allowing large companies to do what they will and pursue their own interests amounts to pursuing societal interests. That setup's really good for the shareholder, but we know what happens when shareholders get more money. They put it in their bank accounts, they send it offshore to Cayman Islands bank accounts.
We're in a second era of robber barons, just like Upton Sinclair wrote about at the turn of the century, and we already know the solution: enforcing antitrust laws and increasing competition so that small farmers aren't pushed out.
We want to hear what you think about this story and what other topics you want to see us cover. So sound off in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications to support more videos like this one.
At Domino's, you can get more than just amazing, delicious pizza.
Oops. Let me come to where these guys are talking first. Okay, here he is.
Inserted like a digital chip or a QR code on the back of our neck. I never imagined that just simple cameras could identify us in such a way that they'd have so much control over us.
Yeah, I just want to mention on that when he says that with the here. YouTube does it in order to do their copyright strikes, and I've been noticing it at the stores for about 4 or 5 years already. I mentioned it in a lot of earlier videos. I'd see people in Walmart where they're shopping with their family, and the cops are waiting at the door, and they didn't steal anything or anything like that. They're getting picked up on a warrant and based on facial recognition. Seen it several times over the years. And then of course, they're on every pole, and you got the smart lights and the drones that I've been talking about. That's why I'm probably going to add this part of this to the Garden Homes for 21B Baker Street series. But it's funny listening to this guy. He's nice, seems like a nice guy, nice couple. But he doesn't understand a lot of what's going on yet. He's just starting to hear these things. He doesn't really get it all the way yet. It's much bigger than what you guys think. You're thinking too small still.
Guys, this is the beast to me.
The way this has been sold to us have been the carrots. It's for convenience, of course, and it's for our safety and security. And of course, how they want you to behave.
It's just the last
B
few
times
minutes
C times D equals R. Where B is biological knowledge that they are picking up through your smartwatches, your PCR tests, your DNA tests. Compute power is all the compute power on the servers. That's unlimited now. They're printing all the money in the world to make as many servers to collect our data and compute. And then the D is the data they're gathering from the smart cities and all the sensors. And B, so this is gives them the ability to hack humans in their transhuman agenda for those people who've been doing research. What we can do, and they're trying to censor.
Yeah, so YouTube uses facial recognition for their copyright strikes a lot of times. Because when I did the videos on the Discovery Channel, if the side of the guy's face was showing, then they didn't get it. But when the camera went by his face straight on, then they'd get me on a copyright strike. And they said right in it, facial recognition picked up on the copyright.
Everything. What we can do is to minimize the data we give them. If we are able to take out the sensors, take them down legally, work with your sheriffs and whoever your authorities are, and educate them on what's coming, and tell them that this is going to be really used for extremely nefarious purposes. You cannot get rid of AI. It's already there, and it's the beast. The beast needs food. Data is the food, and the data conduit is all the sensors, the smart city infrastructure, the 5G towers, your telephone, your cameras at home, your microphones at home, cars and everything. They are the data conduit. So in order to stop the beast, you need to get rid of the data conduit. The data is going to be there because humans are going to do everything all the time, right? We're going to meet up our friends, we're going to go here, whatever. So it's the data conduit which needs to be addressed. You can't address the data, you can't address AI. Because data and the sensors, they feed the beast, I'll say it again. And so the final lockdown requires cameras and face recognition, sold to us as privacy and security. And that face is now used for digital ID, which is linked to a central banking digital currency. And that's the final lockdown. So we are always in lockdown mode, always. And so call to action is no digital ID, which means no face recognition, no cameras. Look up and observe. Cameras, LED lights, street lights, smart cities. These are installed incrementally and they are done at night, and people are looking at their phones so they don't observe what's being done to them. You know, parents, go to your schools and take action. There are cameras in, parking lots, in the hallways, in the laptops, and everywhere. So your kids are being monitored and the SES scoring is begun and they are being manipulated. And figure out in your areas who installed, authorized, and funded the smart city surveillance infrastructure. I've managed to decode it here, but it's very hard for the local politicians. Right now, they're finding it very hard to kind of address these issues. So we have to come up with other creative ways to address this. And if anyone wants to reach out to me independently, I can, share with them, what all I've been uncovered and how they've done it so successfully. Right? So, but the real thing is that in your local neighborhoods, we the people didn't ask for these monstrosities. We don't want them. And we need to let everybody know that. It's our land. We are living here. We don't want this stuff.
If you're still here, that means that you got to the end where they actually told us what we could do. And it is ironic because I've always had an issue with the facial recognition in the cameras to open up the iPhone. I won't do it. I'm sure they still have the face in the pictures, but I won't do it. Or the Mac where you give your fingerprint in order
won't
to.
Do it.
I won't give them my fingerprint, and you do, which is kind of funny.
I give them my fingerprint, but I won't let them do my facial recognition. But I never even considered that staring at my phone for an hour or two a day, the camera system already knows who I am.
Yeah.
I always imagined the number of the beast would be inserted like a digital chip or a QR code on the back of our neck. I never imagined that just simple cameras could identify us in such a way that they'd have so much control over us, you guys. This is the beast to me.
So the solution is to wear masks, people.
No. God, do you guys remember 5 or 6 years ago when you always saw videos in China and they all had masks on? Here in America, you were like, what happened? That would never happen here. It did happen here. In China, this is already 100% active. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the videos and what's been going on there with the lockdowns, but there's drones flying around everywhere. They have those posts all over the place. It's been tested. The WEF has pointed out, Klaus Schwab, that this is a great way to go for the rest of the world. That China's figured it out. It's already built in here, guys. If you don't think that each of us already has a social credit score, you are wrong. Absolutely wrong. What they do is they measure your social credit score, your carbon credit score, right? What you're using, and then your what they're trying to get here now is the medical identity, right? They want all of us to have a medical ID so that they can have every. I really believe in the past few years that they've collected so much data and information on all of us that they know me better than I know myself, with the way that I respond to things, with the way I interact with the material I'm looking at, with the comments that I leave, what I like, what I dislike.
Your facial recognition.
Who's they?
Us.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
They are those unelected officials, the rich, the elite that have an.
Not really. It's really us. They is us. They is we. We're the ones that all ignore this, even if they are purposely distracting us from reality. We all have the choice. Because I've been trying to wake up tens of thousands of people over the years, and if they don't want to wake up, then I'm going to continue to blame the 1%. I don't know.
Idea of where the world's going. The only way we can stop them is to come together and fight back at a very local level. Don't let them put the cameras up. We love you guys. If you haven't set up plans to come to Thunder Canyon in 2023, we've got some good stuff planned for you. So, make your reservations at Thunder Canyon. Come on out and visit us. Look at all the amazing things we're doing here and how we're preparing our community to deal with whatever the road, whatever the world throws at us.
We'll see you in the next video, guys.
Okay. Be monitored all the time at the whims of the gods that are in there. What we have today is a digital panopticon. So we are effectively, both symbolically and practically, inside a prison cell. Even though you don't have the four walls, erected yet, computer vision, along with cameras and artificial intelligence, is looking at us, analyzing us, logging us, and learning our behavior, and then it's going to be scoring us, and then rinse and repeat. They have satellite cameras, drone cameras, they have license plate readers, they have invisible infrared cameras looking at passengers and drivers. It's ridiculous how much we are being monitored all the time. And of course, it's always in the name of safety and security and convenience. Remember those words. Anytime you hear a television head speaking or reading the newspaper or social media, beware of those three words.
I would appreciate if you'd watch it all the way through. And some of you, just like every video we do, some of you will love it, some of you will hate it. I do ask RB Odd Squad members.
It's about giving instructions to people on how to behave. They're going to have face recognition cameras. They're going to have all sorts of pollution sensors. That's how they're selling it. The top of some of these lights is going to have drone charging stations. Why? Because drones are going to be the new aerial police, along with other things. And they are all going to be wirelessly connected to each other and to the internet. And this is part of the Internet of Things. And these smart cities are about data collection, number one, and we are going to see how they're going to enforce people to behave, number two. So here is a diagram on the right. This I found in a paper at the World Economic Forum website, and it was published in 2018. And the digital identity, they say, is a new chapter in the social contract. It's a social contract that nobody signed up for and nobody wants, but they are, planting this on us and going to force this on us. And every entity, person, device, and thing is going to have a digital identity. And once you sign on to a digital identity, the only way you can access healthcare or your bank finances, ability to travel, ability to access the internet, to go to social platforms or do anything in your life, to buy food, you need a digital identity. And how will that digital identity be authenticated? Through your face. So your face is the key to unlocking access to life. And this key is going to be linked to a new type of financial system, which is going to be a combination of carbon credits, your social credits or social score. The technically correct term is reputation capital. And then, of course, your status with respect to vaccines and boosts.
And here I am showing you guys for the last 6 years that the true creator shows us feline, canine, rodent, ape, human, and beast, faces only. Everywhere you look, everywhere in the system, it is that way. So faces only. And here we are pushing into taking the beast in the form of facial recognition, right?
And injections. And if you don't have enough carbon score, if you don't have enough social score, or you haven't taken your latest booster, your face will not be able to unlock your digital identity, and therefore you cannot access stuff. You'll be locked out of the whole new matrix system. And this is what they call central bank digital currency, or CBDCs. They may have minor variations in different countries, but this is essentially the key to understanding what sort of a new world that is going to be, upon us once the final switches are turned on.
Why are you telling people this? I hate that. No, scratch that.
The final piece I'm going to add to this is you'll sit there and you'll say, well, how the heck are they going to, enact this? How are they going to actually pull the trigger and get this thing going? Guys, I believe the dollar, our fiat currency, is about at the end of its life. Throughout the history of the world, fiat currencies have always failed. Always. And I think that the dollar ultimately will fail, just like all the other 5,000 fiat currencies in history. And when that happens, they're going to try to move us on to the CBDCs, right? Which is a digital dollar for the Fed, the Federal Reserve CBDCs. That's how they're going to get us. You think your money's insured in a bank up to $250,000? What if they don't have it? What if there are bail-ins and the only way that they can replace the money that you had in the bank is with this new credits or CBDC? When we get to a point when we download that information onto our phone and we start participating in the system, it's over. It's over. It's like getting a bunch of our cows into a corral, and then once they've got that and we start participating in it, the gates close. We're done.
We'll see you in the next video, guys.
And how does this link to smart cities? Because your face is going to be tracked wherever you're going. Your social score will be updated in real time based on who your friends are, or whether you're social distancing, who you are walking with, when you're walking, where you're supposed to walk, etc., etc. And the universal basic income that they are now starting to give in some countries, that's also about giving carbon credits. Your carbon credits are going to be limited per month, and that's how it's going to go. Right? So your digital identity is really a digital prison, and your face is used to unlock the digital prison if you behave well.
Yeah, because you guys are going to be kind of our guidepost, or like our survey. There's another point in this video where it talks about the geofencing. And I think that does impact our viewers a lot, because one of the best things about the U.S. is how you can just travel anywhere in the U.S., going on road trips. That's something that's really special here. And it will be interesting to see if geofencing makes it that RVing is only available to certain people that can afford certain things.
already
Right, so you do understand about 15-minute cities. You do realize, okay, this is all part of the whole thing,
I want
guys.
to do a video just on 15-minute cities.
So you're open-minded to do that video, but why not this video?
Because this video had me crying.
Well, and my job is not to upset you. My job is to keep you happy so that Sage has a happy mama, okay? If I had any idea that this would have affected you in the way it did to tears, finding you in tears watching this, I never would have shared it with you. I just felt a responsibility to share this information with the RV Odd Squad and run it by you. And I was a little bit shocked that you were so adamantly opposed to us showing this.
It's not that I'm adamantly opposed to us showing this. It's that there's a clarity on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and also I think it's important when you deliver messages that are difficult to people that you do it in a way that's palatable. Just what are the facts? What's the solution? You know, what can be done about it?
And there is a solution. It's to bring it to everybody's attention we possibly can. And hopefully our brothers and sisters, together we can fight back against this.
How are they going to implement this? There's a new protocol called Zero Trust in cybersecurity worlds of, software and server companies that are implementing this. And so by default, we are going from a world of implicit allow to default deny. So as an example, when you log into your computer, you type in a password, and when you type in a password, you have access to all your browser, your files, your applications. But now this zero trust is about default deny. It means we don't trust you, and for everything you need to do, you'll be denied initially until you can prove that you're trustworthy. And that trust will come from face recognition and your digital identity, right? And so this is going to be the new world. It's going to be a world with locks, and anything we want to do anytime, all the time, whether you want to switch on your smart, your smart oven, or open your smart refrigerator, or get into the internet, get into Facebook, you're continuously being monitored by your face and your digital identity. So the concept of HTTPS, which is like secure authentication when you go to websites, everything is going to be removed because the algorithms and AI, they need to keep watching you and how you're behaving. They're going to be storing your emotions. They're going to be tracking your eye movements, and everything's going to be recorded all the time. So this is where we are going if we allow this to happen. Here's an example of how zero trust principles are going to be used when you go to the new shopping paradigm, where all the doors are going to be digital screens, locked with some very heavy-duty plastics or LEDs, and you want to be able to open the door without your digital ID. So digital ID is all about conditional access. So if you have your carbon credits for the month are expired, that door won't open to get beef. If you've had too much sugar for the first 2 weeks and your credits...
This upper video of the clouds up here has one view. I don't know how long it's been on there. It's on the Miguel Everyone channel.
...have expired for the sugar, the door won't open to get your orange juice. So these types of doors are going to have face recognition cameras, and your digital ID will be used to unlock these doors. And there's something known as smart contracts. If people don't know, you'll start reading about it. Smart contracts is really the if, then, and else logic that goes behind this digital currency with social and carbon credits. And this concept is called identity as a service. And identity as a service, there are many companies building businesses around it. They leverage companies that do face recognition as a service. And every time your or anybody's face is in front of a camera, there's a chain of corporations making money in real time. So they found everybody's face is another great way to monetize in Wall Street and beyond. And this is also going to be used for geofencing. Geofencing is a term where symbolically, basically, you're geographically, whether it's in the internet and the metaverse or in the physical world, they can build an invisible fence with your digital ID and control your access to everything. So where you can travel by airplane, or where you can drive, or how far you can drive, how far you can walk, where in the metaverse you can go, who you can communicate with, who you can text, what book you can read, what content of the book you can read, everything is going to be monitored as well as manipulated. And where you can walk, they will limit you using all these puke guns and LED lights, because they are the weapons that are going to limit how far you can walk, and that's related to the 15-minute cities and 20-minute neighborhoods that they are building right now. So the goal is to lock down humanity in, these smart cities and not allow them to move anywhere, pretty much. So the digital identity is inside the Trojan horse of security and privacy. I can't stress this enough. Whenever you hear the word security and privacy, run. And this will result in total control of humans, because people will comply in order to unlock access to life. And how is they going to use this with kids? There's a concept called social and emotional learning that's been creeping into schools for many years, for the last few years. It's also known as CEL. And the goal is that all kids will be monitored from cradle to career. And cameras and face recognition and emotion recognition are going to be at the heart of this. So they can even be monitoring the emotional state of a child, and the algorithms can decide whether a child abuse is happening at home. And then they can come for the children, which they will. Here's an example of this purple device. It's a talk pedometer. So whenever parents are talking to their child, the audio is going up to the cloud, and AI is monitoring what the parents are telling the kids. So if you're not talking enough about global warming and climate change, your carbon credits and social credits are going to go low. So you will be controlled on what you tell your kids. In return, the kids will be getting programmed by whatever the AI wants you to tell your kids. Here's an example, and these are devices that are already in the market. These are not like futuristic devices. People are already buying them for their homes, thinking that these are really cool gadgets to get home. Here's an example of an LED game board, and it has fisheye cameras looking at the kids, and depending on how the kids are reacting, the AI board game can modify what's being shown on the screen. And so at the heart of all this is a digital ID, remember that, which requires cameras and face recognition. They're also going to be used further in human capital value extraction. So they're going to make money in securitized futures markets, much like they did it, going into the 2008 crash, where they had all these mechanisms to do layer upon layer of mortgage derivatives when the market crashed. So this is a new way of making money through faces and cameras. And so they can manipulate a child with SEL, because what the child sees on the screen and what the camera sees, how the face, it can modify what it's showing on the screen. Start manipulating the behavior of children when they are in front of a screen. That's why they've been giving free computers for kids, all across the world. It's why they have false flag shootings in schools, and everyone is fighting for gun control versus gun rights. And the fear TV is, blabbering all day long all over the world. It's about installing more security cameras and more face recognition cameras in the schools to keep the children safe. It has nothing to do with shootings. And people need to understand that. So here's an example of how they make money. They could go to top performers in a given class of schools across a state or something, and they group them along with their pathways, as in predictions on where their life is going to go. And they gamble on that based on prodigy asset groups that they form. And the future results will give them all the social and carbon credits and all the cryptocurrency they need. So they're going to make even more money from the broken kids, because then there will be intervention. And when there's intervention, they can do all sorts of more betting on the behavior of kids going forward at different points in time in their career, all the way from cradle to career. So this is just a game to the people who are, manipulating this whole human civilization as we speak. So the emphasis, so if there are any parents in the audience here or grandparents, you need to really understand that if you're sending your kids to schools, private or public, they will have cameras in them. They will be given devices. All the devices are looking at them all the time. And it's not about knowledge. It's all about social and emotional control of the kids. So I can't stress enough, if you have kids, take them out of school, start homeschooling them with your friends and family who are, pretty good at teaching. And now, last month, I think it was late April, yeah. So late April, and so I'll skip this, but here in Montana, I can change Montana to Sydney, Melbourne, Newcastle, whatever, and there's cameras everywhere. And Montana, I live in a small place, just 4,500 people. The closest town is half an hour away. And when you go there, there are hundreds and hundreds of smart city lights. It's really disgusting. And we have, in our local state legislature, there's a study for facial recognition technology, and that's a complete red herring. So if you start seeing that in states or cities in Australia, just know that banning facial recognition means nothing, because your government, neither your government nor your state nor your local officials are doing facial recognition. So banning it is pointless, because the facial recognition is going to be done in the cloud on Amazon and Google servers with artificial intelligence algorithms, with cameras installed by private companies on public lands, which are now owned by private corporations. So I've been having a very interesting time trying to fight this here. And so if you go to retail stores now, they have cameras at self-checkout counters as well as non-self-checkout counters, because they're looking at everything you're buying. There are 4 facial recognition cameras when you enter any foyer now. So they've established who you are when you enter, and they're going to track you every square foot inside retail stores. And then you have the parking lot panopticons that are looking at all your cars and everybody. And then you have 5 cameras at this entrance. So it just goes on and on. This is not for safety and security. This is to do data collection, identity as a service, and then your digital ID tied to your behavior, your compliance, what you're buying, when you're buying, who you're with, everything. There's a company called ID.me that is doing public-private partnerships. Their goal is inclusivity, diversity, etc., no identity left behind. And it's also for equity, so everybody's equal. But really, it's about taking your password, combining it with your driver's license, your passwords, and then doing digital selfies to unlock government and services like healthcare or retirement and stuff. So they are going to suck us all into the digital ID system one way or the other. And people need to understand that so that they can say no. Because once we accept the digital identity, it's game over for human civilization. Everybody will be fully controlled, and you will behave in exactly how they want you to behave. B times C times D equals R, where B is biological knowledge that they are picking up through your smartwatches, your PCR tests, your DNA tests. Compute power is all the compute power on the servers. That's unlimited now. They're printing all the money in the world to make as many servers to collect our data and compute. And then the D is the data they're gathering from the smart cities and all the sensors. And B, so this gives them the ability to hack humans in their transhuman agenda for those people who've been doing research. What we can do, and they're trying to censorize everything, what we can do is to minimize the data we give them. If we are able to take out the sensors, take them down legally, work with your sheriffs and whoever your authorities are, and educate them on what's coming, and tell them that this is going to be really used for extremely nefarious purposes. You cannot get rid of AI. It's already there, and it's the beast. The beast needs food. Data is the food, and the data conduit is all the sensors, the smart city infrastructure, the 5G towers, your telephone, your cameras at home, your microphones at home, cars, and everything. They are the data conduit. So in order to stop the beast, you need to get rid of the data conduit. The data is going to be there because humans are going to do everything all the time, right? We're going to meet our friends, we're going to go here, whatever. So it's the data conduit which needs to be addressed. You can't address the data, you can't address AI. Because data and the sensors, they feed the beast. I'll say it again. And so the final lockdown requires cameras and face recognition sold to us as privacy and security. And that face is now used for digital ID, which is linked to a central banking digital currency. And that's the final lockdown. So we are always in lockdown mode, always. And so call to action is no digital ID, which means no face recognition, no cameras. Look up and observe. Cameras, LED lights, street lights, smart cities. These are installed incrementally, and they are done at night, and people are looking at their phones, so they don't observe what's being done to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, parents, go to your schools and take action. There are cameras in, parking lots, in the hallways, in the laptops, and everywhere. So your kids are being monitored, and the SES scoring has begun, and they are being manipulated.